Okay, here we are. All right. So OSEP sent out the program performance measures because measures were not created for the 325Xs. So this is the first time for the X competition. I want to say kind of like ever. Previously there was a 325N that were for community colleges to connect and have articulation programs with the four-year university, but none in the area of early childhood. So going from a 2-year to a 4-year, but none like the 25Xs. So because of that, there were not program performance measures established. So in next year's Dear Colleague letter, the those program measures should be listed. So on your project status chart, you will select from their program performance measure 1 and program performance measures 2. And under each of those, you will have examples. So you don't have to report on all of them, but definitely for this first year of the X, you will be focusing on what OSEP is asking you to do by the end of year 2. And Maria, if we can just skip ahead to the brochure slide for a minute. Yeah, so these are the key project timelines for the X, and this was in a brochure that OSEP created to advertise this competition. So between 1 and 2, develop a plan. This is where all of the projects should be. Develop a plan to create a new degree or certification program in the first 24 months of the project year. So that's where you want to put your time and effort for this APR. Don't worry about year 3, year 4, the infrastructure or enrolling students yet. So, okay, Maria, we can go back. So, what we have here are just a couple of examples from the program performance measure 1 that OSEP sent out. And so you want to select and focus on those that say by the end of year 2. So for example, on the information that was sent out for OSEP, the first one example says by the end of year 2, 100% of the project team comprehensive plan for a new degree or certification program that incorporates evidence-based practices will be developed as measured by, and then you're going to insert how you're measuring that. So all of the examples under program performance measure 1, well, I should say 3 of them talk about by the end of year 2. So those would be appropriate for you to select. Bullet number 3, and I'm just going by what was provided, talks about prior to enrollment of scholars. So it's not by the end of year 2, but it says prior to enrollment of scholars, 100% of project team core courses will incorporate scientifically or evidence-based practices addressing assessment, behavior, inclusive practice. And then there's a list talked about curriculum as judged by the project advisory committee using project rubrics based on DEC recommended practices. And so and how it's measured. So that's just an example. So of course, if you're an early childhood program or adding early childhood program or certificate, then you would use DE recommended practices, or that would be example because that's Division of Early Childhood. But for that particular measure, if you're going to report on that, of course, 100% of the scholars or how you're measuring it. If it's not DE recommended practices, what would be appropriate for the area that you are creating or developing a program or certificate. So if it's related service, then it would be something related or to your national professional organization or certifying body. But so that's just an example. So for program performance measure 1, Maria, you can go. I think there was another, the next slide had, no, that was measure 2. Okay, go back to 1. Okay, do we have any questions? Or I didn't go over all of them because under program performance measure 1, there were 5 examples. So I just want to make sure that everyone is clear that these are the program measures for the X grants, and that you receive them, and that you know which ones that you might be picking for your APR submission.
The question, hi, good afternoon. Good afternoon to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
The question that I have, and I do have questions about this, but I guess the first question I have is this report uploaded through a system through the Department of Education? How is this submitted to in the first place?
Yes. So you may have joined late, but in the main webinar, it is a electronic report. It's an e-report, and it is you will log into G5/G6 to report it. So it's electronic. And if you don't have access, if you have not yet, that's something that you want to do soon. And if you need assistance, hopefully you have, hopefully you have access already, and we can get you to the right place to make sure that you get any training. G5 has training online. And someone asked a question about going through those, going through the, certain sections of G5. We didn't plan for that today, but we will, in the future. So we can touch base with you afterwards if you have not, accessed G5. Okay, and I saw a question in the chat. I'm going to move over to, I will move over to performance measure 2. I just wanted to make sure that everybody is clear on where that they received them. These are the project measures. They're not in the Dear Colleague letter. They were sent out by OSEP at a later date in February, and you want to make sure that you are sticking with, years 1 and 2. So make sure you are reporting on those that say by the end of year 2. There's a question in the chat. Yeah, right now you just want to focus on, and it says by the end of year 2, because that was that first, that's kind of like develop a plan. So this is where you want to stick with in developing a plan. And then you will report on subsequent years in future APRs. So you don't want to jump ahead. You just want to stick with by the end of year 2. Okay, we're going to move on to program performance measure 2. And most of these, and once again, I'm reading from what was sent out by OSEP. So these examples talk about by the end of year 5, because remember, by the end of year 2, you're developing a plan. Then by the end of year 2, you're developing a plan. And then in years 3, you're putting the infrastructure in place. And then by the end of year 4, you must enroll scholars. So you just want to stick with year 2. But for program performance measure 2, all of these talk about by the end of year 5. So all of these talk about by the end of year 5, and they talk about scholars. So this section for program performance measure 2 is about scholars. So once again, I want to make sure that you know where to find these, that you receive them. They are not in the Dear Colleague letter. They were sent out separately by OSEP. But here, we will, can dive into this a little later, because this is something that you don't have to report on at this time.
Dawn,
Yes.
I have a quick question. Would we leave this performance measure off the report then, or because we're not reporting on it now, or would we enter it and then put the 999s in there because
Yeah, that's a good question. You would enter it and you can put 999. And of course, if later in future submissions, if there's any changes, you can make, changes to this and just say, you didn't have data before, but now you're entering, you're changing the 999 submission that you submitted in a future APR. Are there any questions on program performance measure 2? Any comments, anything anyone wants to add? For those who may have more experience than some of the novice grantees. We will be following up with FAQs, and we also plan to hold some office hours closer to the APR submission time if you have any questions. But and you can also, of course, check with your project officer and email Dream about any questions. So this is just another example from the program quality measures. And so in this example, you'll have some examples for year 2 that you can report on, and others by the end of year 4 that you, of course, don't want to report on yet, but can enter the 999. Again, this is just key project timeline. Once again, we're here in the blue for project for the 325Xs. We're just developing a plan. Okay, and once again, stay connected with us. Here are our social media handles that you can follow us on. And again, if anybody has any questions, we're happy to take any questions now. If questions come up later, Maria, are we going to have a link for questions?
Yes, we're gonna send the follow-up link for the original form that we had for follow-up questions.
We just appreciate everybody's time and participation, and we're here, to help you submit a successful APR. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.